read and react hour. And a part of that read and react is because the NBA offseason literally starts now. Okay. This offseason has been building up to 6 p.m. And for those who don't understand, the full dynamics, the way this breaks down is this. In the NBA, you are allowed to start talking to your players right now. And anybody who's already a free agent, you can speak to. You cannot, tamper with anybody until midnight, as they call it. So I guess you could, if you want to call this a legal tampering period right now, you could designate it that, even though it technically is not. So, but so we're going to start finding out, some of the breaking news. And obviously, for Sixer fans, Draymond Green will not be coming to you. Draymond Green has signed a 4-year, $100 million deal, according to Shams. That dropped right as the hour crossed over. So, but for the Sixers, James Harden is the big topic of conversation, because what is an actual return for this guy? Because it's looking more and more like Paul George is not leaving the Clippers. According to reports, Paul George is a guy that they want to continue to win with. I don't know why that is. It feels like the Clippers need a reset of their roster, honestly. And if I was running the Clippers, I would probably be open to trading both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But for whatever reason, they're not interested in doing that. So if you're the Sixers and you're trading Harden and you're only getting some role players in return for him, that's not appealing. That's not interesting. I don't have interest in that. Now, if you were trading him for Kawhi, that's a conversation I could have. Draymond Green just signed a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Warriors. That's per Shams dropping that news just as we crossed in the 6 o'clock hour a few minutes ago. What basically you're seeing is that James Harden, according to what the market is calling for, is only worth $12 million more than Draymond Green is. So that's a huge reason why this trade is even happening. This trade is happening because you have a guy like James Harden who can't get that same money elsewhere. So if you can't get that money elsewhere, you got to get traded. That's the biggest reason why Harden opted in his deal and wants to get traded. So now what does that mean for the Sixers? Well, the Sixers are not going to trade Harden for, a bag of basketballs, because they had to give up a lot of assets to get him. So the Sixers are going to try to get back some assets as we go along here. And as we go along, as I said, I'll get you guys the updates on what's happening and what doesn't in NBA free agency. As I said, Draymond Green, he re-signs for 4 years, $100 million with the Warriors. So you have that confirmed. Draymond Green not going anywhere. We all have the visual of the Wolf of Wall Street where Leonardo DiCaprio screams, "I'm not going anywhere." That's the Draymond Green moment right there. You know what? If you watched the match last night, how Draymond Green was all over his friends, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, you kind of had a feeling he was re-signing with them, especially considering they dumped Jordan Poole recently as well in the Chris Paul trade. Some more NBA news. The Cleveland Cavaliers are keeping their depth together. Karis LeVert is signing a new 2-year, $32 million contract with Cleveland, so he will stay with the Cavs. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if there's any other. I'm seeing, some kind of smaller name players signing as well, so I'm not fully sure if like Kobe White is re-signing a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Bulls, so he will not test restricted free agency. Drew Eubanks, who's a free agent, he's signing a 2-year deal with the Suns. So it looks like the Suns are already getting in on the market for some inexpensive help in free agency. Trey Lyles is returning to the Kings. Not seeing any details of the contract, though, but looks like he's staying there. So, some interesting, not major moves yet as we open the doors on NBA free agency. So, that's the latest I got on that front. The Sixers got to make sure that whatever they do with Harden, they're getting a certain amount of value from it. And, I know a lot of Sixer fans emotionally are saying, hey, getting rid of Harden is a good thing. Well, let's take the emotion out of it. Let's dig down to the real nitty gritty. What is the benefit? What is the value of James Harden no longer being a Sixer? Tim Legler on SportsCenter today said this about Harden wanting a trade from the Sixers.
This is the best possible scenario for the Philadelphia 76ers. I truly believe it. James Harden is a great regular season player. You cannot count on James Harden in the postseason. And I don't want to hear about games 1 and games 4 against the Boston Celtics, because that's what a star player is supposed to do in that moment, play to his ceiling. Let's talk about the other 5 games when his floor was so low, you didn't give him a chance to win. And I believe that's been his track record in recent memory. So I think the Sixers, to not have to commit more money, more years to James Harden, which also I think stifles the growth of Tyrese Maxey and also prevents you from getting out of the second round of the postseason for the foreseeable future. And who knows where Joel Embiid would be at the end of that 2 or 3 years. You don't do that. You also don't lose him without compensation as a free agent that just walks out the door with all the assets you gave up to get him. This way, he moves on. You now bring back some assets.
I think the last part of that is the biggest part of what Legler said that's important to someone like me, Josh Hennick, hanging out with you on a power hour here on 97.3 ESPN, getting you ready for 4th of July weekend. The final day of the month of June, NBA free agency is already popping off. What Legler said at the end there is interesting. He said, look, you are in a situation where you are trading Harden and you're getting something in return for him. And this is the question I asked Mike Gill on the Sports Bash earlier on 97.3 ESPN. How do we not know that Harden and Daryl Morey didn't crack open a bottle of wine and sit down recently and say, hey, I'm not going to get the money I want in free agency. I need you to sign me up. I'm going to opt in for this deal, and I'm going to trust you if I opt in for this deal that you're going to trade me. And Daryl Morey this way saves face with acquiring Harden in the first place. Harden gets to leave Philadelphia, gets his $36 million, and is able to hit free agency next year, free agency that you could argue is going to be much more favorable for him. The reason why, because we were talking about this with Austin Krell yesterday, Keith Smith talked about this with Mike Gill the other day on the Sports Bash. Because of the new league CBA that kicks in on July 1st, the new tiers for spending money has become much more restrictive. So there's less of a value for a player like Harden to be a free agent this year because teams are not going to have the money because they're still trying to figure out how to get their current books in order to afford the guys they already have. So a lot of teams are looking ahead to next year. And you look at the deals that have already coming in. Karis LeVert re-signing with the Cavs. Kobe White re-signing with the Bulls. Kyle Kuzma, he is getting a pretty nice deal. I say good for Kuzma. 4-year, $102 million contract to stay with the Wizards. A lot of these guys are saying, you know what? I'm better off staying here to guarantee I have money to try to hit free agency and not get the money. That's a big part of this. Because guys like Harden, they want to get paid. They feel like they have earned this opportunity to make money. But there's not going to be as much money available this offseason There's only a handful of teams that had money to spend. Teams like the Rockets, for example. There's going to be way more teams that are going to have money to spend next year because there's a lot of guys with big contracts who are expiring next year. For example, Tobias Harris is one of many. The other side of why this could be interesting for the Sixers is because with James Harden walking out the door, and the current reporting is that the Blazers are not looking to trade Lillard right now. Maxey is the next man up for the Sixers. Tim Legler on SportsCenter talking about how the Harden trade benefits Tyrese Maxey. Take a listen.
Tyrese Maxey, who I believe is a budding star player. I think he's going to be a perennial all-star. He may even be an all-league player. If you finally give him the basketball, you can expect 23, 24 points, 6, 7 assists a night. That is going to be Tyrese Maxey's stat line this year. And now you bring in more valuable pieces around them, better depth. James Harden might be better than Maxey at his best, Hannah, but we don't see that often enough in the postseason. I think this is the best thing Philly could have hoped for. Opt in and then ask out to be moved to another city.
It's an interesting divide that Tim Legler made there. He says, look, I don't know if Maxey at his best can be Harden at his best, but we don't see Harden at his best enough. And I think that is a huge divide for people because you have one group of people who look at Harden and say, this guy won you 2 games in the playoffs. And Tim Legler says, I don't get that star level enough in order for it to matter for me. So Tim Legler is telling you, look, if I'm running an NBA team, a guy like Harden is not of interest for me long term. And that a guy like Maxey, Legler's higher on Maxey than even I am. He thinks he's a perennial all-star, a potential all-NBA player. That's huge. Because if that is true, if that is what Maxey's potential is, it makes letting Harden leave a lot more simple. And bringing in a coach like Nick Nurse, who has done a great job at elevating players. Look at what he did with Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet owes Nick Nurse a commission check because the money he's going to make this offseason of free agency, because there's a lot of reporting that says that Fred VanVleet is going to the Houston Rockets for big money. He owes 10% to Nick Nurse because Nick Nurse made him into that commodity. Nick Nurse made players like OG Anunoby more than just a random guy on the bench. He made Scotty Barnes fit seamlessly into a Raptors team that had a lot of players who all have similar body types. He helped elevate Siakam into the perennial all-star that he is now. So if he's able to do that with those guys, imagine what he will be able to do with a guy like Tyrese Maxey. So that is where the Maxey Harden thing comes in. If Maxey can go out there and take that next step, it makes the Harden departure less impactful. Because losing Harden is going to be a regular season issue no matter what. You're not going to get Maxey leading the league in assists like Harden did. I highly doubt that. Highly doubt it. But could Maxey be a better postseason player than Harden is? That's kind of where the rub is right now. Finally, from Tim Legler, why the Clippers make sense for Harden. Well, one of the reasons is Harden is originally from the LA area. Tim Legler on the other reason why, which is interesting, why Tim Legler says Harden to the Clippers is an interesting thought.
I think the Clippers would be a better fit for James Harden because I think when you look, especially under the situation that Bobby just laid out, where you're not giving up Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, and you go forward with 3 veterans with a lot of uncertainty. I mean, Kawhi Leonard he may be one more injury away, possibly from retiring with what he has been through. Paul George missed a large chunk of the year, wasn't available in the postseason. And now you add James Harden to the mix, but they're all kind of together, and they're veteran guys, and you've got Lou there. I think a guy that would probably be a little bit more receptive to James Harden's style of coaching. And I'm going to put it out there. There's one more component to this, Hannah. There's less pressure with the Clippers. There just is. They live in the shadow of the Lakers in that city. I think when you look at the landscape of the West, there's just not a lot of people that are going to expect the Clippers to make a run. When you look at Denver, you look at what Phoenix has done to bolster their roster.
Less pressure in Clipperland than Philly, than other places. Is James Harden that fatigued with having the eyeballs of the world and the questions around him? Is James Harden just another athlete who couldn't handle playing in Philadelphia, who can't handle the bright lights of a big city? Maybe. It's very possible. It's very possible that Harden is just a guy who's not built for this. If you're somebody who watches pro wrestling, the Street Profits, we want the smoke, right? I don't know. Does Harden not want the smoke? Does Harden want his cake and eat it too? Does Harden say, I still want to compete for a championship. I still want to be on a winning team, but I don't want to be on a winning team in an organization with that many eyeballs, with that much pressure on me. And that's why I want to go to the Clippers. I can go somewhere I'm familiar with. I'm from the LA area. Clippers, not the number one team in LA, the number two behind the Lakers. In fact, in terms of sports in Los Angeles, the hierarchy is probably, according to people I've talked to, who lived out in LA, they have told me that Lakers are number one and Dodgers are a very close number two out there. And they are far and away the 1-2 beyond any other thing out there. When the Kings are a playoff team, people care about the hockey team. If they're not, people don't care as much about them. That's more of a fun time than actually a passionate fan base. USC football, college football is massive out there in LA. The Clippers are not a major team in Los Angeles. They're kind of like the Angels. They're the forgotten other team out there in the LA area. So for Harden, does he look at that and say, I'd rather be in that situation? Just something to think about. Again, Tim Legler on SportsCenter earlier today. All right. Coming up on the other side here on Game Night, get to more of your texts. I see texts coming in about Harden and Maxey at 609-403-0973. I got a little news about the Draymond Green contract. How does Draymond Green's new contract have an impact on Tyrese Maxey's next contract? I'll explain that coming up next, because there was news about Tyrese Maxey today that's kind of getting put under the rug. It's kind of been getting forgotten about. But this Draymond Green contract he just signed, I'm going to tell you the reason why it has a direct connection to Tyrese Maxey next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle.
This weekend on ESPN Radio.
At the track, at the wall, out of here. And just like that, the Giants have retaken the lead.
Fighting for the top of the NL West, the San Francisco Giants continue an East Coast trip at Citi Field against the New York Mets.
Throw to the plate, he's out.
The Giants and Mets. Coverage begins tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern and Sunday at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
He's out.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Save thousands at Matt Blatt Kia. Get out of your old trade today, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Go to mattblattkianj.com for more details. That's mattblattkianj.com.
It's gotta be a
Matt Blatt Kia.
DQ presents Picture This. You're getting together with all your best friends. Now picture all your best friends are actually the delicious ingredients of the new cake batter cookie dough blizzard. That's DQ soft serve, cake batter flavor, confetti cookie dough pieces, and DQ signature sprinkles. Oh, hey, it sounds like you got some pretty sweet friends. And that's worth cueing the confetti. cookie dough. The flavor party isn't going to last forever, so hurry in and get your cake batter fix today. Only at DQ. Happy tastes good.
Homeowners trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Business owners trust Jenkins, too, for light commercial services. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Call Jenkins. One call does it all. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing, and drain cleaning services. Call now and learn about rebates through the HVAC Energy Efficiency Program, brought to you by South Jersey Gas. Call 609-641-6262 or visit jenkinsandsons.com.
Hey, you know what I don't get? Why is that company always telling you to just do what? What is it? To just look like everybody else? Or maybe just pay way too much for your shoes? Well, at Skechers, we know what we want you to do. Just slip in. That's right, just slip in to new hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Why? Because slip-ins are the easiest, most comfortable shoes ever. You don't have to bend down to put them on. You don't even have to touch them. Find slip-ins for the whole family at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Trio North Wildwood is where casual elegance meets delectable dining. Experience the perfect blend of comfortable atmosphere and gourmet cuisine. Savor our chef-inspired dishes made with the freshest ingredients, featuring options for all tastes. Treat yourself to a night out at Trio North Wildwood and indulge in the ultimate dining experience. Reservations on Resi. Don't miss out on the taste sensation that is Trio North Wildwood. 700 New Jersey Avenue, North Wildwood. Chef-driven, quality-focused, TrioNW.com.
Red, white, and dew savings are happening now at the Home Depot. Prep for all the summer guests and gatherings with up to 60% off select patio sets now at the Home Depot. Shop and save on a wide variety of sets and styles to find what suits your patio best for another season of hosting with the most. Find the perfect pieces for your space with up to 60% off select patio sets. So sit back and relax into red, white, and dew savings happening now at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We're coming up in about 30 minutes from now. Your final opportunity today to qualify for the Phillies trip contest. Dave in Summers Point, he was one of our qualifiers in the 5 o'clock hour. At the end of every hour, around 55, 56, you hear the sounder go off during the Sports Bash and Game Night, and you have an opportunity to qualify for a Phillies trip, full expenses paid. You go to Pittsburgh, you're part of the tailgate, you get great seats to the game, you get to hang out with your buddy, you and your friend get to go, and you get to see Mike Gill, hang out with him, have a couple beers with Mike Gill, travel to Pittsburgh, travel back, all expenses paid thanks to Phillies Sports Trip. Phillies in Pittsburgh. If you want to go, you can qualify coming up in less than 30 minutes from now when you hear that sounder right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle is the app. We'll get to your guys' messages coming up in just a moment. Text board is there for you, 609-403-0973. And of course, your DMs, 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Before we get to more of the latest signings and players who are sticking with their teams right now, I wanted to explain to you guys what is going on with Tyrese Maxey, because the news came out that Draymond Green is staying with the Warriors. And most of us who have been kind of observing what's been going on expected this with Jordan Poole being traded by the Warriors. That was kind of a clear sign by the Warriors organization to Draymond that, hey, we choose you over Jordan Poole. But there's a huge key to Draymond Green's contract that has a massive impact on Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers. And here's why. So for those who didn't see the news earlier, Ramona Shelburne of ESPN reported earlier today that the Sixers are not going to extend Tyrese Maxey's contract this summer. Instead, he is on track to enter free agency as a restricted free agent next summer. The reason this is a direct correlation to why the Warriors and Draymond Green have negotiated the new deal that they have. So, and I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds. Some of this information is kind of even a little bit too much for even someone like me, and I'm supposed to be the sports geek. So, in the NBA, they have changed the salary cap structure. In the NBA, there are now what they call two aprons. Think about it like this. There's two tiers to the cap now. It technically used to be three, all right? But they've eliminated one of those tiers. Now the idea is that if you cross the second apron, you get aggressively penalized as an organization. You get absolutely crushed. So here's what it has to do with Maxey the Sixers. Draymond Green's new 4-year contract for $100 million. The key to that contract is that Draymond Green is going to make about $4 million less this upcoming season than if he would have kept his player option of $27.6 million. So here's an example of an organization and a player working together. What is going on with Draymond Green is Draymond said to the Warriors, look, if you're going to trade Jordan Poole and you're going to want to keep me, I will opt out of this deal to help you guys out. I'm going to basically make $4 to $5 million less next year. So that means that of his $100 million contract that he has signed, he is only going to make about $22 million of it next season. Why is that significant? It is significant because it saves the Warriors organization about $40 million in the repeater tax bill. Because if they would have had too much money on the books when July 1st came around, when that clock hits midnight Eastern time and we go to 12:01, if Draymond Green would have been paid $27.6 million next year instead of $22.3 million, the Warriors would have been penalized by the league for their salary cap having too much money on it, their books having too much money, because the NBA is trying to cut down on teams abusing and using the cap for overspending. And part of the reason why this agreement is in place is because, and again, I'm not Andrew Brandt. I'm not a sports business expert, okay? So I'm not going to go heavily deep into this. You know, there are people like John Orand, Andrew Marchand. I know, Mike, you'll listen to Dave Sampson. There are people like that who can dig into much deeper this than I'm going to here. But in an NBA where they have renegotiated the CBA, they are spreading the money out more, and there's less of a concentration of money. And the league is trying to stop the super teams. They're trying to make it less. They're making it less profitable for players to try to build super teams. They're trying to get back to forcing teams to be more organic. So one of the things they do is you have the bird rights. So the bird rights allows you to re-sign your guys for more money that they can get out on the open market. It incentivizes players to stay with the team that drafted them that go out in the free agency. That's why the Warriors can give Draymond 4 years, $100 million, while another team might not be able to. That's why the Blazers just signed Jeremy Grant to keep him in Portland for a 5-year, $160 million contract, whereas Grant would have gotten roughly about $40 million less in the open market. But Draymond says, I'm not going to take the max from my team. Draymond says, I'm going to make about $5 million less this upcoming season, so you save around $40 million in your tax bill with the NBA. So now what does that have to do with Tyrese Maxey? The Sixers need Maxey's number to stay at that 4.4 million for next year. Actually, it's 4.34, my bad. 4.34 million for next year. They need his contract to stay at a certain number next year. And it's going to force his restricted free agency number to have a lower qualifying offer when he becomes a restricted free agent. Because doing this helps the Sixers not be a team that pays a big tax bill. So to keep Maxey on that lower tier, Maxey is indirectly helping the Sixers by saying, I'm going to keep playing on this $4.34 million next year. I'm not going to assign an extension right now because if you're the Sixers, you're telling Maxey, look around the NBA right now. Guys are re-signing with their teams for a lot of money. Jeremy Grant just got 5 years, $160 million to return to Portland. Let me try to find the Kobe White. Here's Kobe White. 3 years, $33 million. Okay? The Sixers are indirectly telling Maxey, look, if you stay here, we build with you, we can promise you will get somewhere between $33 million and $160 million contract next offseason. Whereas right now, if you would have re-signed him, you might not have been able to offer him as much because you can't afford it. But you can offer him potentially more next year because the tax bill won't be as much. So that's why the Sixers are not offering him that contract right now. The other side of it is they're not offering him, I should say, an extension this offseason because whether the Sixer fans out there like it or not, Tyrese Maxey is still a trade asset. And him sitting there at $4.34 million is a lot more appealing to a team that I traded for him than not. And if the only way you could get a guy like, let's say, Damian Lillard is to trade Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Maxey is a lot more appealing to be acquired if he's still on his rookie deal than if he signed a new contract or extension. So that's the explanation behind that. It has to do with a lot of economics. A couple other moves popping off around the league. Javon Carter is going to the Bulls on a 3-year, $20 million deal. Now, this is interesting because with uncertainty about Lonzo Ball's health, it looks like the Bulls are preparing for a world where Lonzo Ball never plays for them again by having a point guard tandem of Kobe White and Javon Carter. A very interesting move by the Bulls there. I'm trying to see if anybody else's significance is signing. I mean, there's a lot of people who are signing right now. As I mentioned, Jeremy Grant getting big money to stay in Portland. Let me see here. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else who is recently signed who's of big significance before I hit the text board at 609-403-0973. Just scrolling through Twitter here. So there's anybody else. Here's another one that's interesting. Bruce Brown. Remember, he declined his option to stay with the Nuggets. So he's a free agent. It looks like, according to Jake Fisher and Woj, he is going to go to Indiana. It looks like it's going to be $20 million a year over 2 years with Portland. I need to double check that number. Pull up Woj here because Jake Fisher report's looking I'm a little confused by the writing of it. All right, here it is. Bruce Brown agreeing to a 2-year, $45 million deal. So it is 2 years. It's a minimum of $20 million a year. So that is what he's getting. Now, he's a guy that a lot of teams were wondering, could they add him in free agency? Well, it looks like that Bruce Brown was asking for a number that teams like the Sixers and the Suns and the Lakers and some other teams we're not going to be able to afford. Frankly, I don't even know what the Pacers are doing. Why are you signing Bruce Brown for all that money? Bruce Brown is an excellent role player. He's not going to be. Yes, yeah, that's a little bit ridiculous. All right. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Text John says, what's going on, Josh? It's very simple to me. Here's why the benefit of James Harden being gone. To me, Tyrese Maxey being a full-time player and no more dribble for 20 seconds and then shooting a brick by Harden. I'm not happy that we're probably not going to get anything for Harden, but Maxey's development and being a full-time guy with the ball in his hands is a big benefit for the Sixers. Well, two things there. Number one, I agree with you that the Harden dribble is definitely was a problem for the 76ers because you saw in game 6 that style of play became so problematic for the Sixers in the playoffs that, in situations where you needed more pick and roll action, you needed more movement on the court, you needed more from your guys, you got less. When you needed more from your offense, it basically grinded to a standstill. Maxey is a guy that you can push the pace with. And I think even if Maxey doesn't average 10 assists a game like Harden did this past year, I don't see why Maxey can't do 7 assists a game. I don't see why Maxey couldn't be scoring 24 points, 7 assists a game. The other part of it you're saying is not getting anything for Harden. Don't be so sure. It's looking right now like the Clippers are the only team that is legitimately pressing for Harden. It looks like the Knicks situation is more of a leverage than an actual they're interested. Unless something changes in the next 24 to 48 hours, you might see Harden traded for some role players and draft picks. Now, I know what you guys are saying out there. Why do we need draft picks? You don't necessarily, but you want them. You want the draft picks because they're now trade assets for you. You now can take a team's draft picks and use them to help you make your team better. Now you can take fill in the blank player, trade that guy somewhere else, and get something in return. Now, trading Furkan Korkmaz with a draft pick to get someone of value becomes a lot more interesting. You want draft picks. Sixers don't have a lot. Get some draft picks, use them as trade assets, use them as trade tools for you to make the team better. That's why you want the draft picks. All right, more your texts on the other side. 609-403-0973. George from Summers Point. We'll get to your text and more coming up here on Game Night. Josh Hennick hanging out with you. NBA news popping off left and right. Phillies back in action tonight against the Nationals. All that and more still to come here on 97.3 ESPN. And the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
Saturday morning in the locker with Billy Schwein. Mike Carlin joins me in the studio. The Phillies return home to host the Nationals while the Sixers and Flyers are in the news. We have it all covered. Hour 2, it's the Beach Patrol Report, brought to you by McCann Realtors of Seattle City and the Ocean City Lifeguard Alumni Association. This week, we'll talk with former chief of the Seattle City Beach Patrol and historian Tom McCann about his new book, plus chief of the Wildwood Beach Patrol, Steve Stock. All that and more. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Seattle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Seattle City.
Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the Sweet Summer Sale, June 30th through July 10th, and get 30% off paints and stains with prices starting at $31.14. That means 30% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, get 30% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Why pay retail or over MSRP for a new vehicle? Get to Matt Blatt Nissan and take $9,000 off any 2023 Nissan Armada, Ariya, or Titan in stock. Or put zero down, pay 0% financing, and make zero payments for 90 days on every Matt Blatt Nissan Rogue in stock. Plus, if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, AJ the Trade Man can get you released, no matter the make, model, or mileage. Then drive home in your new Nissan Rogue with zero down and 0% financing or zero payments for 90 days on every Nissan Rogue for 36 months, even 0% for 60 months. And of course, the Matt Blatt Nissan P. Financed the new vehicle plus tax tag and $589 doc fee. Offers can't be combined. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 7/5/2023. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Red, white, and dew savings are happening now at the Home Depot. Prep for all the summer guests and gatherings with up to 60% off select patio sets now at the Home Depot. Shop and save on a wide variety of sets and styles to find what suits your patio best for another season of hosting with the most. Find the perfect pieces for your space with up to 60% off select patio sets. So sit back and relax into red, white, and dew savings happening now at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Are you tired of choosing between fine dining with stuffy, uptight vibes or settling for a casual meal with subpar cuisine? Hey, it's Mike Gill. Trio North Wildwood solves this dilemma by offering the perfect blend of both. Our cozy, relaxed atmosphere pairs seamlessly with chef-inspired gourmet dishes that will have our taste buds dancing. Don't sacrifice quality for comfort any longer. Book your reservations on Resi for Trio North Wildwood now. Trio North Wildwood, 700 New Jersey Avenue, North Wildwood, TrioNW.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Don't forget, coming up in less than 10 minutes, your final chance today to qualify for the Phillies trip contest. You and a friend could get all expenses to go to Pittsburgh to watch the Phillies play at PNC Park. Join the tailgate. All thanks to the Phillies sports trip. Your next opportunity coming up in less than 10 minutes from now. Then you won't be able to qualify again until Monday. By the way, hope everyone has a safe 4th of July weekend. It's going to be crazy out there. The traffic. My way into the radio station this morning took me a long time, and I kind of figured it would because the people are here already. 4th of July is on Tuesday, but people are already here. So be safe out there. Be responsible. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other and yourselves. George at Summers Point chimes in on the text board about the Phillies at 609-403-0973. George at Summers Point says, hey, Josh, since Harper got beat out for the starting DH spot, who do you think will be the Phillies representative on the All-Star team when the reserves and pitchers are announced on Sunday? Thanks as always, George at Summers Point. George, Summers Point, First of all, hope you have a great, safe holiday weekend. Obviously, it'll be crazy busy out there. If you're in Summers Point, I'm sure that you're probably not going to want to travel too much out and about. But back to the Phillies. I'm going to go with the assumption that the Phillies representative is going to be Nick Castellanos. And I think it's going to be Castellanos because he's the one guy on the team that has given a whole season of production. And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, this is a guy in Castellanos who had a horrible year last year by his standards, and he's hitting over 300 this year. And even though the power numbers are not there, he only has 10 home runs on the year. You look at what he's doing this year, okay? He's 4th in the National League in batting average. That in and of itself has to have you in the conversation for something, right? That in and of itself is significant. He's top 5 in hits this year. He's top 5 in doubles in the National League. So I'm going to assume that he's probably going to be in that conversation. The other guy who's probably going to be in the conversation is Bryson Stott. Stott stole another base in the Phillies game just now, and Alec Bohm drove him in to give the Phillies a run here. And you look at the year Stott is having, it's a very good year. It's not a great year, but you have to wonder, does the people putting together the MLB All-Star team think that there are more quality outfielders or more quality second basemen? Think about that. Bryson Stott is 8th in the National League in batting average. Still top 10. He's also 6th in hits. He has the 5th best stolen base percentage in the National League. And he's having a good year defensively. He's actually the 4th best fielding percentage of all second basemen this year. So I think you're going to get either Stott or Castellanos. Sorry. Stott or Castellanos in there. I think one of those two guys is going to get in there because they're both among the league leaders in multiple categories. And it just comes down to, what is going to be to me, the deciding factor is there going to be another second baseman or two more deserving than Stott? Or does Stott get in because there's too many outfielders to put Castellanos in? Now, naturally, I think that GT Realmuto should also be in the All-Star game. He leads the National League in fielding percentage as a catcher. So he's having a great defensive year. Offensively, it's all right. Okay, he actually has the worst batting average that he has had since 2015. And with only 8 home runs this season, he right now is on pace to have the fewest home runs that he has had in a full Major League Baseball season since 2017. So offensively, unless something changes, Realmuto is not offensively catching your eyeball for catchers, okay? But I think Castellanos and Stott, those are probably your 2 prime candidates for the All-Star game. Another text coming in. Mike from Marmora chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, Josh, first, I want to extend a happy 4th of July weekend to you. Secondly, get Harden out of here. I'm tired of him being a petulant child. Cheers. That's Mike in Marmora. Well, first of all, Mike, cheers. Be safe this weekend. Secondly, it's hard for me to call Harden a petulant child only because of this reason. I think that Harden is an individual who just doesn't really know what he wants. And when you have someone who doesn't really know what they want, it's like when you go to a restaurant and you have the person who stares at the menu and 5 minutes goes by. You've been sitting there. 10 minutes goes by. The waiter or waitress comes by and says, "Hey, you guys ready to order?" You still looking at your menu, and the person you're with, you're ready to go. You're in your mind thinking, I know it's been 5-10 minutes. I gotta figure out what my pick is on this menu before the waiter or waitress comes back. And you're looking at your friend or your date or whoever you're out with, and you're like, all right, well, they look like they're looking too, right? So you're ready. So you turn to the waiter or waitress and you're like, but then you look at your buddy or your date and you're like, uh-oh. They haven't said anything for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And they turn and they're like, do you mind if I look at the menu a little bit longer? That's James Harden. James Harden spends way too long looking at the menu. Now, if that makes him a petulant child, maybe it is. I think Harden doesn't really know what he wants in life. I think that's a huge part of it. I think Harden, he wants to win, but he wants to win playing his style of basketball. Harden wants to be an all-around basketball player, but in the biggest moments of a game, in a playoff game, he doesn't play like an all-around basketball player. By the way, a little news coming in. George Niang will not be a 76er anymore. He's going to sign a 3-year contract for $26 million with the Cleveland Cavaliers, according to his agents at Priority Sports. So I know some Sixer fans are happy to see Niang go. You hear that sound? You know what that sound means? Callers number 6 and 7. Dial 609-573-3776 for your chance to qualify for the Phillies trip contest. You and a friend, all expenses paid trip to Pittsburgh to see the Phillies play at PNC Park. You get to go with Mike Gill, hang out at the tailgate, have a great time, enjoy the game. Your trip, your hotel, the tailgate, the tickets are all expenses paid. You want to go, you have to be caller 6 and 7 at 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Call now to qualify. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Hope you have a great weekend. I'll talk to you Monday right here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Kyrie Irving is staying with the Mavs.